With fewer than 9 weeks to go before the election, Donald Trump secured a pretty big win today regarding his New York hush money conviction. Instead of being sentenced potentially to jail in 2 weeks from now, he will now be sentenced after November 5th. And that's only, quote, if necessary. Those two words standing out from Judge Merchan's decision today, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But really, this decision overall means there will be no big courtroom drama playing out before voters are going to the polls, at least not in a courtroom here in New York. Trump was with his attorneys when he found out this news today. That's because he spent the morning in another courtroom for another hearing, actually coming within feet of E. Jean Carroll, the woman that a jury found he sexually abused and defamed, which didn't seem to deter him, judging by the comments that he made afterward.
This is a disgraceful case. I have no idea who the woman is, and I never met her. I'm disappointed in my legal talent, I'll be honest with you. They're good. They're good people. They're talented people. Today at the trial, they didn't mention the dress. I said, why didn't you mention that?
It's pretty notable to stand there and watch as Trump was surrounded by those very attorneys who represent him on many different cases. As he said, he was disappointed in them and listed off grievances during what was billed as a press conference, but didn't involve answering any of our questions.
Judge Merchan, Judge Engoron, and Judge Kaplan, very, very hostile judges. I got sued essentially for defamation because I'm denying a story where I'm right. I should be suing her for defamation. There were two witnesses. One is a woman who's followed me for years. She said in 1979, I was in an airplane with her. She said I was making out with her, that I grabbed her at a certain part, and that was when she had enough. It didn't happen, and she would not have been the chosen one. She would not have been the chosen one.
Yes, you heard that right. Trump criticizing the physical appearance of some of his sexual assault accusers. Now, this comes, and what you just heard there, it was 45 minutes of that today from Trump Tower. And it's all coming as some 15% of likely voters in 6 battlegrounds tonight remain undecided on who they're going to be voting for in November. My lead source tonight was at that press conference sitting next to me while Trump was going off and venting. Senior political correspondent for the New York Times, Maggie Haberman. I mean, Maggie, just obviously Trump had just come out of that courtroom where E. Jean Carroll was just a few feet away from him as he's appealing this. But it is also a strategic choice, maybe not that strategic, to come out and talk and draw attention to the sexual assault accusations against you, the sexual abuse findings by a jury, and also his criminal conviction here in New York.
Right. I don't know of anyone who was recommending that he do this. And it's also worth noting he didn't have to be in court today. He chose to go to this hearing. And I understand it. He has made very clear he wants to be at legal proceedings connected to him. That is invariably going to draw attention to this news conference. And he didn't take questions from us, as you know, because you were there, as I was there. All this is going to do is call more attention to that as well, at a moment when he is trailing badly with women in polls. And so we have, certainly he has called attention to all kinds of things that are typically unhelpful for a candidate. Sometimes it has not hurt him. It didn't hurt him in the primaries when he called attention to the indictments that he was facing. This is not a primary anymore, and this is different. These allegations are different. And it wasn't just that he called attention to them. He laid them out in sort of graphic detail. He talked about allegations that, frankly, I suspect much of the public doesn't remember anymore. But, if they were tuning in, they will.
Yeah, it kind of seemed like what your opponent would be doing 2 months out from the election.
I'm sure they will be after that press conference.
Kind of reviving all of the nitty-gritty details of these allegations that have followed him since he was inside the White House and a candidate.
And before
2016.
Yeah, I mean, look, he denies all of them. You saw that there. He has said that repeatedly. He, as you know well, he thinks that he is his own best defender, both in a courtroom and on television, and he likes to be in front of cameras. There are times when that aligns with good politics for him, and then there are times when it does not. And it is hard to see how. Now, this may not matter because there's so much baked in with him, and it's very hard to imagine how many actual undecided voters there are. I think there are people who are leaning in one direction or another and may say that they're undecided, but they're really persuadable. This is not generally a lot of information that you would put out there, and he just gave the Harris team a bunch of sound bites to use in ads.
Well, and what I was thinking was also, clearly this is a very sensitive issue. And
Right.
we know that. If you've covered him, you know the Eugene Carroll
Sure.
thing especially. But he was making clear, as Harris is, debate prepping in Pennsylvania, he kind of made clear here's a roadmap for issues that I'm triggered by that are
right.
something to. It was kind of was saying here's potentially a sensitive topic to go after me on Tuesday night.
And here's things I might say, depending on how you do it, and things
With many more people
right, with
watching.
millions of people tuning into this. It's just there's a lot of reasons why I can't really imagine that anyone in his campaign was actively saying, you know what, here's an idea we're going to take to you. You should go do this. He tends to want to do these things on his own, and there aren't very many people who say he shouldn't.
So the attorneys that were standing there around him, you could only see a few in the actual camera shot when he was talking, but actually you can see John Sauer on the left, Alina Habba, Will Scharf, Todd Blanche, Emil Beauvais was next to him, Boris Epstein. He was criticizing them, which was maybe one of the biggest, most standout moments from the news conference today, where he was saying they're good people, they're talented, but he was critical of how they've handled the Eugene Carroll case. What did you make of him doing that in such a public way?
Well, it's a way to show dominance. It's a way to say what he wants, knowing they're not going to say anything back to him because this is a public setting and they're not going to turn to him and argue. And it's a way to humiliate. And that is something that we know that he has done with any number of aides and lawyers and advisors and employees over a number of decades. He is constantly complaining about his lawyers. You know this. This has been going on for decades. Even Roy Cohn, who he has mythologized as the most perfect lawyer in his death, since his death, he was really critical of in real time, and he distanced himself from when Roy Cohn was dying of AIDS. Mm-hmm. So this is now just the latest. These people who have defended him pretty aggressively and in the ways he has asked more often than not, up to a line that they try not to have cross where it would cause problems with a judge or a jury. It's still not enough for him.
Yeah, and he had a lot to say about judges today. There was a moment of kind of disconnectedness between what he was saying about the judges that his cases are before and what other people say about judges that he likes. I just want everyone to listen to those two moments back to back.
They say terrible things about judges. They do it with the Supreme Court justices because they think they're going to intimidate them. I think it should be illegal. Judge Merchan, Judge Engoron, and Judge Kaplan, all of them hostile areas. And very, very hostile judges.
There's a lot there, but look, Trump has been very critical of judges, and he's been critical of reporters who cover him in ways he doesn't like for a long period of time. He described it at one point in that press conference that I don't think you showed as working the ref, and then he started talking about the late coach Bobby Knight, and then he went sort of seamlessly from that, and he was talking about the judges right before he started talking about Bobby Knight and working the ref, and then he went seamlessly into saying that some of us, meaning us in the press, should be ashamed of ourselves. I mean, a lot of this is working the ref. He just sees judges as no different than anyone else. And he said openly he thinks Republicans are not good enough at that. He praised Judge Eileen Cannon, without naming her, but it's the judge he appointed, who dismissed the documents case against him in Florida. The other judges who were involved in cases that he didn't do very well in, he was very critical of himself. There's not a specific through line, but he has made a career out of working the ref, and it's not surprising.
Yeah, I mean, the through line was criticizing the judges who don't dismiss his cases or treat him fairly, even though Judge Merchan today, we saw what he did just a little after that, and then praising the ones who do dismiss his cases.
I would actually make the argument that Judge Merchan's decision to adjourn the case until after the election, adjourn the sentencing until after the election in that case, while I suspect Donald Trump doesn't actually want to go to prison, there is a world in which this it would be politically helpful to him because his supporters have been galvanized around moments like that. And he is an astute enough reader of the political landscape, especially among his base, to probably know that.
Yeah, so it may have been better for him
That's right.
politically, which everything for him is hinging on this election when it
Correct.
comes to other court cases.
Correct. And I think that he is acutely aware that if he loses the election, that is the case, and there could be other investigations.
So we obviously didn't get to ask questions. I had a lot